I read a quote about trauma, and it was Adama, who said that when you go through trauma, you think that the best way to heal is to forget it. But then you realize that the best way to heal is to address it. So in the same line, how does addressing it help with that healing process?
So for me, I really didn't have anybody to talk to. I was fearful of taking therapy because I was afraid that they were going to use that against me. I mean, they were accusing me of being a potential suicide bomber. I think the last thing I needed was to take therapy. um, so, you know, it, by doing a lot of these events and these podcasts that we're doing, I was able to share my story. And the more that I shared, the more I healed. And I healed because I released a lot of my anger out in my story. I wouldn't tell my story angry or any, how I'm talking to is how I would tell my story. But I was able to look into those small details and say, wow, well, this is what happened to me. And this is how I felt. But you know what? This is what I should have done different. I was able to reevaluate everything. But it took me a long time to realize that staying silent is not the way. You have to talk. And once you talk, you put your story out there, you send a wave of change. And at that moment, I didn't realize it. And now look, I'm here with a book. So it's working.
And a follow-up for you, because I know this is we're talking about something that happened when you were 16, and obviously continued on, and it sounds like continues on into the present. And now you have two young children, right? How does having children of your own impact the way you go about telling this story, or does it?
It impacts my parenting. I think most parents, I know you guys are not parents, but the two authors, we parent based on fear. So I try not to project my fear to my children. I'm trying to not make sure they're not to be afraid of the world. I want to protect them from everything, but in reality, I have to allow them to explore. My best way is they're too young to know my story. They're only 7 and 6, but if they ever want to hear it, I want to be the one to tell them. But I feel like the world that we live in, people are going to tell them, oh, your mom wrote a book. So sooner or later, I have to sit with them and tell them that mommy wrote a book and this is what it's about. But at the same time, it has to be age appropriate because their minds are young. I'm for, a child should be in their age bracket, like in their mind. They shouldn't be exposed to everything. So I just want to tell them in a healthy way. I hope that makes sense.
Salvador, same question to you. Have you found writing and sharing this story to help you with the trauma to process it?
I'd say almost certainly. I think that after the year, bit over a year after Hurricane Maria and living through this and the work that I did and seeing what I did in the communities that I work with, I struggled to internalize and sort of to understand what I saw. And a lot of it, for a long time, I just put it aside and put it to the back of my head, sort of like Adama was saying, just for trying to forget it and ignoring it. And ended up sort of brewing and sort of storming down on me. I moved to boarding school after 10th grade. And it was New England. So when winter came around and, the sun starts setting at 4 p.m. and it gets all gloomy and cold, seasonal affective disorder kicks in. I started struggling a lot sort of emotionally, but it was mostly, I was sort of realizing that I never really processed what I felt and what I saw. And I tried to brush over it really quickly. And part of when I got into the nitty gritty of light and hope for Puerto Rico, it was sort of, that was a distraction for me. And I was, every waking hour that I did was either doing homework, that was when school was back in order, or working on light and hope. And I never took a moment in a whole year to reckon with how I felt and understand my feelings and accept them to a degree. I also faced resistance, obviously for different reasons, Adama, but to seek professional help. And it wasn't until like February of 19 that I went to a counselor in my school, and I was like, let's talk about how I feel. And it ended up being fantastic. I think that, especially in Latino culture, or I guess in for all males, male persons of color, I think there's a lot of stigma for us men to seek professional help, especially with regards to like mental health. And I have people in my own family tell me, "Oh, Salvador, what you're feeling is it's just a blip. You'll be fine. Just wait. You don't need to talk to a psychiatrist or a counselor about it." But I was like, no, I think I need some help. And I sought it out, and it was great. And that visit that I had was excellent. Learned more about myself than I knew. 17 years prior, and it was very, very positive experience. So I'd say that then the process of writing the book and sort of formulating my story, and this is in the whole process during 2020, especially in a time during COVID when all of us were reckoning with what was going on around us. I'd say that writing and putting all this into words was really helpful in sort of cementing it's a testament to what I felt, but it really cements all of my feelings in a way that I can now look at it and be like, oh, this is how I felt. And I no longer have to struggle with sort of figuring out how I felt, because I already did that with the book. So I think the book is writing the book and having the book be out there is certainly really helpful in terms of processing trauma and sort of reckoning with it personally.
And since this is a show for writers, you mentioned seasonal affective disorder, which is we get that really bad here in Indiana. We have our Gothic Hoosier winters where everything just turns gray and terrible and naturally lends to dark thoughts. About $20 on the retailer of your site, you can go and you can get what's called a sad lamp, esteemed audience, that will shine sunlight directly on you and at least help with that. You still want to write your trauma down, because it sounds like that helps you make sense of it and organize it and put it down so where you can recognize it. But that light, especially you writers, because you have to sit in front of a computer, a typewriter, a notepad, whatever you're writing on, hopefully for a significant period of time every day anyway. Just put your sad lamp right next to you, have that shine on you. You get your writing done. You're also going to combat the seasonal affective disorder. It's win-win. And then, Fresh, the same question over to you. Did you find writing to help you to process your trauma without re-traumatizing yourself?
For me, it was a very, very hard battle. I felt like through writing this story, I was able to, get out the voice of my friends and my dad. My friends got shot and killed like around the same time that I moved to the US. And it's, I think towards the end of the book, I mentioned that. And then, my father too, it was a very hard time. So because there was so much trauma I was dealing with, my memory had actually blocked a lot of my memories from like childhood, from my time in Afghanistan. So while I was writing this, I had to try really hard. I had to, get a lot of therapy because it was kind of re-traumatizing, but at the same time, it was something that I wanted to do because to me, it meant that I was continuing the fight for my friends, for my father, and all the sacrifices that he and my mom made for me to be able to get my education, to fight for everyone else who had to face persecution, who had to face oppression. So I would say it was a little bit of both. It was healing, but through it also, there was a lot of trauma that was coming back that was, but at the same time, it was helping me deal with it in a way that I was able to share it with an audience and so that they're aware of issues that are happening. So for me, it was traumatizing, but in a sense also very healing.